and welcome to another episode of A God Shift. I'm your host, Shayna Rattler. I'm so glad that you're here. But before we get started, I would love if you would do me a favor. Wherever it is that you're listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. With that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media, tag us here at A God Shift, and then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is because I know that there are a lot of believers out there that really want to do their part to uphold Christian values, and everybody doesn't know where to start. And so, the more times these episodes are shared, the more people that can be equipped with the tips and the tools and the strategies that we offer here on the show. So, thank you in advance for being willing to share that. Well, I'm going to read my friend's bio and we're going to get started for what I know is going to be an amazing conversation. My guest today writes to help families thrive and loves to let creativity splash on the pages she writes. She desires to help families and their children know Jesus and to learn to defend their faith. She's a certified writing and marketing coach, international speaker, former television host, and award winning author of more than 30 books for women, children, military, and families. She sold more than 1,000 articles for more than 60 periodicals. She writes for the Right Conversation blog and crosswork.com and serves as a researcher for documentary biblical archaeology filmmaker Tim Mahoney, who has been on this show before. I am so excited to welcome to the show Karen Whiting.
And I'm so excited to be here with you, Shayna.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background information for the audience. Karen and I are both part of Advanced Writers and Speakers Association. So I met Karen in person August of, let's see, this is 2024. So it had to have been August of 2021. I met Karen in person and we're part of the same organization and we run into each other every year at the National Religious Broadcasters. And one of the things that you guys should know about Karen is not only is she a phenomenal author, but she knows literally everything and everybody in this industry. And so I am really excited to be able to pick your brain, Karen. And I know that you have a new work that is going to be coming out soon, and it's all about Bible archaeology for kids, which I just find fascinating. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, it won't be out until spring of 26 because
Okay.
we want to do full color at Tyndale, and that takes more time.
Yeah.
But digging deep, unearthing God's truth through Bible archaeology, I will be writing with Jesse Floria from Focus on the Family, Clubhouse editor and Clubhouse Junior magazine editor. So that's fun. We were just chatting today. And I never dreamed that I would also get to go to Israel while I was writing this book and go to some excavation sites that aren't even open to the public. But
Oh,
I was able to do that, amazing things. This book, though, will also have hands on activities for the children that they will be able to duplicate and work on different things. And that will be so much fun.
what made you do this? Like it seems so, I know a lot of the different topics that you've written on over the years and a lot of different, Bible type books that are out there for children. And this seems like such a unique and somewhat novel concept. How did you come about, wanting to do this type of work for kids?
It kind of goes back to a Barna group study that showed the reasons that children were leaving the faith when they hit teen years. And one of the big reasons is that they felt science and the Bible didn't agree ever. And
Wow.
I thought, well, they do. And if we go to archaeology, you'll see how much things do agree. And that brought me into looking into that. And then I ended up in Italy, where I went to some ruins and different things and said, I really have to do this archaeology book. And Jesse and I had talked about that because we've done four other projects, or three, I guess this is our fourth. And he was very excited too. So then I talked to my agent and talked to my editor at Tyndale again. And finally, my editor at Tyndale said, yes, we really do want you to do that. So it all just started from there. And at the same time, Tim Mahoney called me and asked if I would do research for him on his Bible archaeology projects. And I'm like, I don't think I'm even capable of doing that. And I said, Lord, what should I do? Because I'm on the phone and I'm praying. And God said, for 6 months you've been praying to do something about Bible archaeology. What do you think you should say? So I said, oh, yes, I would love to.
Yeah, you're Karen Whiting, you can do anything. But I'm curious, like, so you had been studying archaeology for yourself, or as it per, and then you decided to apply it to a children's book, or what kind of was the order of those steps? Because you said like for 6 months you'd kind of been studying.
Well, 6 months I'd been really praying about doing something on archaeology, particularly for children. And
Okay.
Tim actually has a component who does for young people. But I had started studying archaeology and reading through the Bible archaeology book, the Bible, that it has the archaeology all through it, which was great to read. And I was very enthralled by that, which then when the Barna study came out, I said, but archaeology would do this for kids. And I've been writing for children. In fact, my sweet spot is probably those tween years, 8
Yeah.
to 12 or 8 to 14 is usually the readership I get. And I thought, this is what they need. So I'm really excited about it.
I'm really glad to hear that. Last week I interviewed one of George Barna's team members. I was not, he was too busy, to come on the show. And so I got Dr. Adam Rasmussen to be on the show. I interviewed him last week. And I love to see that you and some other authors that we know are actually writing books that I'm not going to say that they stemmed from or were because of the research, but they really are a resource that people can go to when they've discovered what that research shows. One of the researches by Barna that I cite all the time is the one on biblical worldview, or really the lack thereof, and how post COVID, especially, how few Christians actually have a biblical worldview. And unfortunately, only like 37% of senior pastors have a biblical worldview. And when you look at youth pastors, only 14% of youth pastors have a biblical worldview. And so now you pair that with the research that you found of, the questions that children struggle with that lead them to go away from the faith. Those are very startling and eye-opening statistics, but then as parents, we're like, now what in the world do I do about it to either help my child if they're on their way to or find themselves falling into one of these statistics, or if I want to prevent it? So I'm really curious when you look at some of the discoveries that were made and a lot of what you learned when you were studying this, how can those discoveries be used to help children confirm their faith?
Well, some of them show us an artifact that will confirm the faith. Some of us show us how science has worked with that archaeologist to confirm the faith. Let me take one example, and that's David. They found an engraving with King David's name on it, but then the anti Christian archaeologist said, oh, that's not really the Hebrew letter for D.
Oh, wow.
And they had quite a contention over this for a number of years, but all of a sudden in science, we had something that the abbreviation is RTI, reflective technology imaging. And that's taking a picture of something from all kinds of angles and overlaying it, and then you see it better. Well, with a rock and an engraving, weather can weather that and knock little bits of pieces off of it over the years. They did RTI imaging on this from all sorts of angles. They overlaid it, and it was so clear that it was the Hebrew letter for D,
Oh, wow.
for David, whatever the letter actually is.
Correct.
Okay, so that shows them the science and the Bible archaeologists work together, and it confirms that he existed because their big argument at that time is King David didn't even exist. It's no more than a myth like King Arthur. And if he didn't exist, well, Christ couldn't have come.
Yeah.
And that's part of their whole thing. If they can knock down a domino, they feel like they can knock everything down. If we can keep it firmly up and show the proof of it, we keep everything in line.
What I love the most about what I'm hearing is that children these days, I think about little 2-year-olds that I see that know to pick up an iPhone. And even if they don't know the code, they know that they should do this to get the iPhone or the tablet to open up. And their children from young ages all the way up to teenagers are such advanced thinkers, And in Christianity, I've always ran into people of all ages that try to apply, like logic to the things in the Bible. And if you can't draw a parallel to what their logical mind can conceive, then they really struggle to believe and understand what the Bible says. And so, since children nowadays are such advanced thinkers, I love that you're giving them something that says, yes, I know your smart, challenging brain is going to have questions, and I'm going to show you something scientific to prove to your logical brain what it is that the Bible is trying to convey, because you've got all these people that are going to be trying to dispute, like, oh, well, there's no way that's possible because X, Y, and Z. And you're like, hey, let me show you all the way back to things that were formed way before we were even thought of as civilization to show that it actually aligns with what the Bible says. It
Yes.
just proves that
And for the
God knows what he's doing.
Right. And for the children, the hands-on for that particular one is to take a piece of paper, just use an index card and three colors and write a word or message in those three colors. Then take three pieces of clear acetate from like a report card cover, cut them the same size as that index card or whatever paper you're using, put little dots in the four corners, and take one at a time. And in black, write just what was in one of those three colors. Do that for the three different colors. Pick up one and say, can you tell this message? People will say, no, I don't know what it is. Overlay two of them. You say, well, can you make out some of it? And usually you can say, yeah, I can make out a bit of it.
Yeah,
Now put all three together and you can read the message. And that helps them understand, what is the science we're talking about?
you're so brilliant, Karen. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take this conversation a little further. We'll be right back. God is commissioning women leaders to uphold Christian values and change the course of history for his glory, and to mobilize other women to blaze the same trail. Want to know what type of kingdom leader you are and learn specific strategies to impact change based on your type? Find out by going to kingdomtrailblazerquiz.com right now. All right, welcome back. So I have Karen Whiting here with me, super author, and we've been talking about the new work that she has coming out from Tyndale, and it's about Bible archaeology. And we were just discussing how children can actually use what's discovered in this book to confirm their faith. And so, Karen, I was sharing with you before we recorded that the whole purpose of my podcast and my ministry these days is to really uphold Christian values. There's no question, if you will, that everywhere we look in the world around us, that our values are under attack. And so, how can someone, even if there's an adult that is listening to this, and they may not necessarily be thinking about a child, but how can we use things like archaeology to be able to defend our faith and kind of support the mission of upholding values? Because I just see this as one more tool for us to use, especially if we're talking to someone who is an unbeliever, someone that we're trying to shape them to have more of a biblical worldview. Like, how do we use this?
Right. Well, I would look at a few things that happened with consequences of people who were sinning, that God told them what they were doing wrong. So, the fall of the first temple, when the Babylonians came in, destroyed the temple, at that time, we can go back in archaeology and find some evidence of the destruction of the temple. We can find out that God did exactly what he said and when he said it. One of the things that's been happening is, I don't know if you've heard of the Temple Mound sifting, but
Mm-mm.
the Islamic people decided to illegally dig without following the law of Israel of having it excavated and looked at by an archaeologist first. They dug up 9,000 tons
Wow.
of dirt under the Temple Mount at a corner so they could build a staircase down to Solomon's, uh, what's called Solomon's stables. And they just dumped it in the Kidron Valley. And then a few years later, someone realized what had happened, and he went out to say with some friends, can we sift through this and find stuff? And found out they could. That got the Israeli government involved. Took a few years for them to agree, yes, you can have a whole project of sifting all of this dirt. And in that dirt, they are finding so many artifacts, more than 606 14,000 artifacts have been found.
Wow.
Many of them are from that temple destruction and the temple period. So they're finding all this evidence of what was in the temple and the coins from the different people who had come through and people who conquered the area. If you can look at that, then you have to say, well, if God did what he said, what did he say? And what do we need to do not to have destruction coming upon us in our country?
That's so good. Karen, you are a wealth of knowledge, and I know people are going to want to learn more from you about this topic and all the others that you're knowledgeable about and you write about. What's your social media handle?
My Facebook handle is just Karen Whiting.
Simple enough. And if people want to take things further with you, where would you like to send them?
I think they can just go to my website, karenwhiting.com, and there's a contact form there that they can contact me so we can talk, including, if they want to be part of my very small focus team of families that are checking out some of these units that I'm doing for the book before the book comes out, and then be part of the launch team, I would love to hear from them so they can do that.
That would be awesome. And if they go to your website, is that how they would be able to find the book when it does come out, since this episode is going to air a little earlier?
Yes, they will. And they can also email me to be put on the list so that I will email them news of when the release is coming and even ahead of time so they can pre-order it to be one of the first people to get this book that will be in full color. Will be just wonderful with 40 units of artifacts from the Old and New Testament and what they mean, their significance, and what we can learn from them, and how there's a section in every unit for the children to become faith champions. So not
Yes.
only will they learn, but they will defend their faith because of what they have learned.
I think that's awesome. Everyone share, share, share this episode because this is such a unique approach to how we can help our children become stronger believers and really be able to shift the culture. So I hope that this episode has blessed you and that you will go back and listen to previous and future episodes as well. Everyone have a great day. Bye bye.